Hey guys, it's Graham. Welcome back to Truckerman Reads. Finished another audiobook today, Out Over the Road. This one by the late, great Elizabeth George Spear. Second book that I've ever read by her. She's been gone for a minute. She passed in 1994 at the ripe age of 86, accomplished children's writer. I first found her novel called The Sign of the Beaver when I was looking for books that were similar to Gary Paulson's Hatchet. But she was publishing a lot more actively in the mid-20th century. I might have reviewed that one on this channel. If not, I'll talk about it later. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I would read it again. This one that I'm covering today, it's called The Witch of Blackbird Pond, and it popped up when I did an AI search for books that I haven't read that would be a good fit for Halloween. Obviously, the title is fitting, but right out of the gate, let me tell you, there's nothing paranormal or supernatural in this. Release date was, I believe it came out in 1959, so when my parents were born. And it's set in, excuse me, my throat is still doing the cruddy thing if I cough, sorry. It's set in 1687. Dadgummit. Main character is a girl named Catherine. She goes by Kit. And she's growing up on a pretty well-off plantation in Barbados. But her parents die, and then her grandfather, who takes care of her, dies, and this kind of pervy old suitor comes around, and he's making generous loans to the estate that don't have to be paid back. And also, I'm old and lonely, and lonely, and old and lonely. The thermonuclear hints are that he wants to marry Kit, and she's obviously not down with the sickness. So unannounced, she hops a boat and sails up the coast to Connecticut to move in with her aunt and uncle and cousins. And when she gets there, they're like, "Oh, you're just coming for a visit." She's like, "Aha, no." And they start unloading all of her stuff. And, like I said, pretty wealthy setup that she had on the plantation. She's got like 7 trunks of stuff. And her uncle starts to realize what's going on. And he's like, "I wish you would have told us you were coming." And she's like, "Yeah, if I told you I was coming, you would have said not to." And she's like, "Yeah, I don't want to marry a 50-year-old man. Gross." And so he's a little bit put out by it, but she's like, I acted in my own interest, and I'll do what I can to kind of fit in here and pitch in and help out. But she's, right out of the gate, she's a nail sticking up in the floor. She's also used to a different tempo of life and a different series of conveniences. And this colony plantation town in Connecticut is pretty much nothing. It's a Puritan town, and it's also quite new. So there's really nothing there, and there's nothing to do except farm and read the Bible and go to church like 3 times every Sunday. She's struggling, but it beats the alternative of being married off to be an object wife to an old man. Gross. But naturally, her being the protagonist, she gets into trouble with the locals, both young and old, both male and female. And the eponymous Witch of Blackbird Pond is a woman who's not quite reclusive, but she's a bit of a hermit and an outcast. She lives in a nearby swamp. And Kit finds out that it's because this woman is a religious minority. She's a Quaker, a member of the Society of Friends. And her particular brand of religious freedom exercise doesn't jibe with the Puritans. And so, until she repents of her weird ways and confesses the Puritan methodology, she won't be welcome back in society, and neither will anybody who associates with her. But Kit, through a couple of interactions with Hannah, is her name, becomes quite fond of her. But this does, understandably, land her in some trouble. I'm going to hold off from giving away too many details going forward. But this is a great piece of historical fiction that fairly and accurately represents the time period in which it's set, and also, shows what a day in the life would be like through very well realized and well developed characters. There's some romantic intrigue, and you get a glimpse of what actual courtship rituals do look like, and when a boy wants to make a courtship gesture to a girl, what are the procedures that he has to go through. Somebody's interested in Kit. She's not necessarily interested right out of the gate, but then her own feelings develop, and it's all written in a way that it's still compelling and intriguing to the reader. If Spear's other book, The Sign of the Beaver, is definitely aimed at boys, this one is much more aimed at girls. But if you are interested in historical fiction more for the historical side than so much of the narrative, then it's still a great snapshot of daily life for somebody in this situation. In the third act, Kit does end up on trial, on a witch trial, and if you're familiar with New England witch trials of the era, it's a pretty fair representation of just how bullcrap those were. Like, oh, we've got a witch to blame. Well, I saw her walking by my house, and then my cow wouldn't produce milk later that same day, so she must be a witch. Burn her, throw her in the pond. But the fact that she was a good person who was helpful and actually was using the Bible to teach a girl how to read that day, it turns out that she's able to make a case for her not being a witch, and you see how that whole crisis kind of develops and diffuses in the third act of the book. But this is really enjoyable. I kind of had an epiphany as I was reading it, and that's that if I'm going to stop doing star ratings on books, I want to have some other kind of metric for whether a book was good or not. And since quality can vary so greatly and it can be so subjective on a 1 to 5 star scale, I think I'll rather just say, what is the likelihood that I would ever read this book again? And I'd put it up there. I'd put it pretty high. I will probably read it one more time in my life, which is saying something because the amount of time that I have to dedicate to any given book is low in a year. But I would read this one again. Really good historical fiction is its own discipline. And it takes a certain skill set and a certain type of talented writer to put together quality historical fiction. Stuff that isn't just, contemporary fiction, but is set in the backdrop of this is what it was like, and she went outside wearing her Puritan dress and her Puritan bonnet. You got to be able to describe things better than that. And it's got to be really seamless when you weave it into the narrative. It can't be so obvious that you're like, oh, you're just writing something that you researched on Wikipedia half an hour before sitting down to the computer, or in Spear's case, the typewriter. So yeah, this is really well done. I would read it again in much the same way that I would read Sign of the Beaver again. So yeah, I guess I need to dig up on my channel and see if I actually did review that one. I'm pretty sure that I did, but it's been a couple of years. This was good, and I think you should check it out. Like I said, no actual paranormal or supernatural stuff, but it's one of those atmospheric New England reads that fits well with this time of year. And of course, there is a Halloween harvest potluck kind of party that pops up in the middle of the book, and it factors into the story. So that's what makes it a good fit for this time of year. Thanks for watching. Drive safe. See you out there.